Happy New Year to all of you. This is my first commentary for the year. And of course, even the backdrop in our chapel is different. Everyone knows that this year is the 60th anniversary of Jamaica's independence. But Jamaica has many other important milestones in 2022. This year marks 330 years since the Great Port Royal earthquake, actually a tsunami, of 1692. Most of Port Royal sank into the sea. Also, the district of St. David in St. Thomas came crashing thousands of feet to the earth. To this day, the scar on the hillside at Mount Sinai near Landui, St. Thomas, is called either Judgment Cliff or Brook Hill or Brockway. As a result of the earthquake, Hog Crawl became a town called Kingston, eventually named a city and eventually the capital of Jamaica. Apparently, it was Colonel Barry's Hog Crawl, and that is why you have Barry Street downtown. Okay? But it was nothing but hogs, and the people said they prefer to take boats to live among hogs than to go back to sinking Port Royal. And that is how the city of Kingston started. And this year, 2022, is 150 years since the capital of Jamaica was moved from Spanish Town to Kingston in 1872. One of the great things was the harbor, because in those days, we didn't have any airplanes, so all movement of goods was done by boat. And of course, Kingston has the 7th best natural harbor in the world, they say. The year 2022 marks the 135th anniversary of the birth of Jamaica's first national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Why we say first national hero is that although 5 of them were named in 1969 and 2 of them were named in 75, and Marcus Garvey was among the 5, he was called a national hero in 1964 when his body was brought back. He was the first person who they said, yes, this is a national hero of Jamaica. So that's why people say the first one. The late Wills Ogilvie Isaacs, a colorful politician in the PNP government led by Norman Manley, and for the first year of the government led by Michael Manley, would be 120 years old this year, 2022, had he lived. It was Wills Isaacs who said, "What are a few broken skulls in the building of a nation?" After political violence broke out in Gordon Town in St. Andrew, at the foot of the Blue Mountains, in the local government election campaign in 1947. Mr. Isaacs and Florizel Glasgow, later Governor General, were the main internal rivals of the 4 H's mentioned elsewhere in this post, mentioned elsewhere in this talk that I'm giving. Political historians and those with long memories remember Group 69, which was really a knuckle duster group of toughs who put the fight to their rival gangs in central Kingston, where Wills Isaacs was MHR, then MP. In other words, member of the House of Representatives. We did not say member of Parliament until 1962. He was MHR, then MP for central Kingston between 1949 and 1967. In 1967, he was elected MP for North East Centre, and he resigned in 1973 to become Jamaica's High Commissioner to Canada. And it was really rough going in those days, and of course, he felt that his supporters had to take the fight to those of the other side and set up a knuckle duster group with knuckle dusters. This is part of our history. We're not talking about whether it should have been or shouldn't have been right now. We're just talking about the history. This year, 2022, marks 115 years since the great earthquake of 1907. There are very few historic buildings in Kingston that date to the 19th century or before because of that earthquake. A building code was put in place as a result of that earthquake. The Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Cathedral, located on North Street in Kingston, which today is a landmark in Kingston, would not have existed where it is were it not for the earthquake that destroyed the old Holy Trinity Cathedral on East Street. This year, 2022, marks 85 years since the establishment of Jamaica Welfare, now known as Social Development Commission. It so happens that Norman Washington Manley was the lawyer for the Jamaica Banana Producers Cooperative. A plant disease decimated Jamaica's banana crop at a time when Jamaica's exports was mainly fruits. The banana workers flocked into Kingston in search of jobs. And having come into Kingston, they refused to return to the rural Jamaica. So a plan was established to develop the rural areas so that the banana workers would return, or at least those that had not yet left would stay, and that they would return to their homes in St. Thomas, Portland, and St. Mary. Jamaica Welfare was sponsored by the United Fruit Company. 1 penny went into the special fund for every bunch of bananas placed on one of the United Fruit Company boats. Out of that fund came the plans for Jamaica Welfare, like the community centers in Porus, in Manchester. Community centers in Porus, Manchester. Guysville at the border of St. Catherine, St. Mary, and St. Anne. And Landui, St. Thomas, which is right where Judgment Cliff is. Self-help housing, each one teach one, adult literacy, cultural development such as the recording of folk songs, culinary art, and clothing manufacture, among other things. But the most important contribution of Jamaica Welfare was the establishment of cooperatives in rural Jamaica. The development program of the People's National Party, of which Norman Manley was president, was really an expansion of the Jamaica Welfare program, which in any case was largely conceptualized by Norman Washington Manley. During the Second World War, Jamaica Welfare became a statutory body of the colonial government, and the name was expanded to Jamaica Social Welfare Commission. The entity was responsible for gathering ground provisions for the soldiers on the war front in Europe, at least from Jamaica. In 1955, when the PNP came to power, led by Norman Manley, some youth camps were set up under the auspices of Jamaica Social Welfare Commission. The first was Cobbler Youth Camp at Cobbler in Manchester. The second was at Chestervale on the St. Andrew side of the Blue Mountains. In 1965, the name of Jamaica Social Welfare Commission was changed to Social Development Commission when Edward Seaga was Minister of Development and Welfare. This year, 2022, marks 80 years since the establishment of the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. While the first credit union to be registered under the old Industrial and Provident Societies Act was the Clark's Credit Union in December 1941, the Sodality Credit Union was formed early in 1941 by a group of Roman Catholics at the Holy Trinity Cathedral and believed to be the first credit union, but the second one to be registered. It was the Sodality Credit Union that set up other credit unions all over Jamaica while riding on bicycles. The first result was that the credit unions killed the loan shark industry in Jamaica. And it was a Sodality Credit Union that established the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. This year is 80 years since Alexander Clark Bustamante was released from detention. And having been released from detention, the following year he founded his Jamaica Labour Party. And of course, as you know, Alexander Bustamante eventually became Jamaica's first Prime Minister in independence. But he entered the House of Representatives in 1944, was Majority Leader, and then Chief Minister, and then Leader of the Opposition from 1955 to 62, Premier for a short while before independence, about a month or so, and then Prime Minister of Jamaica. This year, 2022, is 70 years since the 4 H's were expelled from the People's National Party. Ken Hill, his brother Frank Hill, Richard Hart, and Arthur Henry, all with names beginning with H, 4 H's, were accused of being communist and they were expelled from the PNP. And of course, as a result of that, the whole nature of Jamaica's politics was perhaps changed. I don't have time to get into that, but at the same time, it's very important. This year, 2022, is 65 years since the massive earthquake of 1957. So intense was it that it destroyed the lone Richter scale in Jamaica that was owned by the Jesuits at St. George's College. The destruction was not as severe as in 1907 because a building code was in place since the 1907 earthquake. As everyone knows, this year, 2022, is the 60th anniversary of Jamaica's independence. This year, 2022, marks 50 years since Michael Manley became the 4th Prime Minister of independent Jamaica. The general election was on leap year day, February 29, 1972. There is no February 29 this year, as it is not a leap year. So the next best date, in my opinion, is March 2, 1972, when Michael Manley was first sworn in as Prime Minister. March 2 is Ash Wednesday this year, 2022. In the first 10 years of political independence, Sir Alexander Bustamante, Sir Donald Sangster, and Hugh Shearer were Prime Ministers. One of the many programs started by the then PNP administration actually got underway in 1972, the National Literacy Program, which was formerly the Adult Literacy Section of Social Development Commission. In 1974, the National Literacy Program evolved into a public sector company known as the Jamaican Movement for the Advancement of Literacy Limited, or JAMAL. Also in 1972, an innovative way of observing National Labour Day, established in 1961, was introduced with the giving of voluntary manual service on Labour Day by then Prime Minister Michael Manley. In this year, 2022, current Prime Minister Michael Holness, the youngest person to date to become Prime Minister at the age of 39 when he succeeded Bruce Golding in the office in 2011, will turn 50 years old in July this year, having been born in July 1972. This year, 2022, marks 30 years since P.J. Patterson became the 6th Prime Minister of independent Jamaica in 1992. This year marks 25 years since the PNP won a third of 4 terms of office. It was the first time in the history of universal adult suffrage in Jamaica that any political party had been elected for more than 2 terms. P.J. Patterson was PNP president for 3 of the 4 victories. This year's 10 years since Dudley Thompson, the famous Pan-Africanist, passed on. He was the first person who had never went to high school to achieve the Rhodes Scholarship in Jamaica. He was born in Panama of Jamaican parents. He became a flight lieutenant during World War II. He was a lawyer, and he defended Jomo Kenyatta after he was arrested for the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya. And these are the important milestones that I can think of out of my head. I have probably left out a few.